Imagine you show up to a food festival at noon, hyped about that one smoked brisket stand everyone's been posting about, and there's already a little sad sign that says, "Sold out." You weren't even late. Noon is basically morning for a festival, but somehow the brisket is just gone, and you're left holding a lemonade you didn't want. Here's the thing about vendors at events. They didn't forget to bring enough food, and they're not secretly hoarding it in a van somewhere. They made a choice, a very calculated one, about exactly how much stuff to bring, and that choice has layers most people never think about. Let's start with the basics of how vendors actually plan for an event. They don't just wake up the morning of and throw a random number of supplies in a cooler. They study past events, ticket sales, weather forecasts, and a dozen other signals to make what's called a conservative estimate. A conservative estimate is exactly what it sounds like. Guess on the low side so you don't get burned. If a vendor thinks 500 people might want their tacos, they might prep for 350 because leftover inventory in the food world doesn't always just go back on a shelf. Perishable food, specialty merchandise, and handcrafted goods all have what you'd call a shelf life problem. You can't exactly pack up 200 unsold artisan empanadas and resell them at the next festival 2 weeks later. So vendors would rather run out than throw money in the trash. Now layer on top of that something called supply chain limits, which sounds like a boring corporate phrase, but is actually just the very real ceiling on what a vendor can physically make or get their hands on. A small batch hot sauce maker might only be able to produce 400 bottles a month, and they're not going to magically double production just because a big event is coming up. Bigger vendors deal with this too: specialty ingredients, custom packaging, limited staff, equipment capacity. All of these put a hard cap on how much product can even exist by the time the event rolls around. It's less about willpower and more about physics, time, and a supply chain that doesn't care about your weekend plans. But here's where it gets actually kind of genius and a little sneaky. Some vendors sell out on purpose. Limited supply creates what marketers love to call exclusivity, which is just a fancy word for making you want something more, because not everyone can have it. Think about the way sneaker drops work. Nike doesn't accidentally make only 3,000 pairs of a hype shoe. They know exactly what they're doing, and vendors at events borrow from that same playbook, turning scarcity into a marketing strategy wrapped in a tortilla, or a candle, or a tote bag. When people see a line snaking around a booth, they assume whatever's being sold must be incredible, even if they've never tried it. Scarcity signals quality in the human brain, whether it's true or not, and vendors who understand it are essentially running a psychology experiment on you every time you attend an event. The early sellout also creates a story that outlives the event itself. People go home and tell their friends they barely snagged the last one, and suddenly that vendor has free word-of-mouth marketing doing laps around social media until the next event. So the next time you're wandering a festival and something's already gone, try to read the situation before you get annoyed. Was the line insane? All morning was the booth tiny? Was the product clearly handmade? If yes, that's a real sellout and probably not a conspiracy against you specifically. But if the booth is big, the event is massive, and the vendor just happens to run out by 11 in the morning every single time, there's a decent chance they've done the math and decided that selling out is more valuable than selling more. It's less about supply and demand and more about the story they want you to tell. Either way, the lesson here is to show up early, do a lap before you commit, and prioritize the booths with the shortest windows before everything disappears. If you want to learn more about how we help vendors and event organizers think through all of this, check out the links in our description.